Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Colleen.
Hello.
And, the last podcast that we just, or the last episode that we just did with each other was kind of just talking about, next step. And we obviously went off in many different directions, but it was fun. So Colleen and I decided that, from time to time, are just going to do a podcast with each other. We love to have our guests, but it's also fun to be able to have these conversations between the two of us because we can get going on all sorts of topics. So that's what we're here doing today.
Great.
Yeah. And I know if you wanted to say hi, Colleen.
Hi, everybody. And I'm just glad to be here again. We actually have no outline, so we'll see. I know it's really funny to think about that because it's not so much that there's nothing to talk about. It's that there are so many things to talk about. It's which do we talk about first?
I just figured, we'll just get going and see where it takes us. It's been an interesting couple of months for us and for the world, and so we'll just see where it leads us.
Well, I have been really observing a lot of the astrological transits that are going on right now. And to me, it makes so much sense with observing the world and my own personal world. It makes a lot of sense for, what I'm experiencing or observing. And we had decided that we would talk somewhat about all of the AI things or artificial intelligence things that are going on. Most people, I think, have heard of ChatGPT, although I also know a lot of people who haven't heard of it yet. So ChatGPT is a language model, artificial intelligence. We have knowledge of it, but we are not experts, and we're certainly not sponsored. So with any of it.
Good condition to say right up front.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and this is going to be released down the road. So, we're recording it before it's actually released. Is everything direct as of right now? We're recording this on February 1st. Everything's direct, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I would
too.
have to
All
look.
the planets.
All planets have gone direct. They're no longer retrograde.
Yeah.
That's what she means. And particularly, there's some really big changes going on with Uranus going direct in Taurus. It's at 14 degrees right now, heading into 15 degrees. Very grounded earth energy, but also that freedom in the earth energy. So I think that's just a really interesting movement. And then Pluto in particular is going, moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. And it will go back and forth through Capricorn and Aquarius this year. And then once it goes into Aquarius, finally, it's there until 2044.
Oh,
So
crazy.
really big changes. And I think we're catching glimpses of them now.
We are. I know because everybody's affected by Pluto, but I've had some pretty serious Pluto transits going on over the last couple of years. And so I had an astrology reading about it back in November or December. And she was talking about, or October, it was October. So it was right before we went to Disneyland. And she was talking about how it would, it comes back into Aquarius and then it goes back, or I'm sorry, back into Capricorn, then to Aquarius. And so you'd catch glimpses of what the Aquarian transit's going to look like for you as it, it'll go back into Capricorn, which is the old kind of energy, and then into Aquarius. So you'll catch those glimpses of what that Aquarian energy and Pluto will be for you every time it retrogrades.
Yeah, and again, same thing. We are not experts in astrology. We listen to other experts and then try to share what they say too,
Mhm.
and how that's relevant. But how I see it relevant right now, we have seen such dramatic changes in the last couple of years. They've been going on longer than a couple of years, but
Understatement
highlighted
of
the
the
last,
decade.
yeah, right.
Been
Yeah,
a
there's
wild few years.
it has been a wild few years, and it's potentially still a little bit wild out there,
Yeah, it's true.
and seems like it
Yeah.
actually, that is still the potential as we kind of try to rebalance and restabilize. But how that has to do with Reiki, and then also we started talking about AI, is to me, AI is one of the things showing up that is a global change that is now happening in the infancy of it. And there's lots of discussions around it, the pros and cons, and the ways that it will be useful and the ways that it might be used harmfully. And so also the way that all the kids are finding out about it and thinking, yeah, they've got solutions for writing their homework and things like that. But I've actually, and I think this had to do with curiosity, because right before I saw AI, the end of November 2022, the first time I heard about ChatGPT was pretty quickly when it was introduced. And what was notable to me was right before that, maybe in the month before that, I'd just been kind of feeling like, I guess maybe the words were like, I didn't have anything super interesting going on. Like, what am I curious about? And one of the questions that I always ask in our Reiki journeys is, what questions do I have? And asking for higher level questions to come in, because that makes me pursue the answers. And so anyway, I had noticed that I had kind of was just not real active with my curiosity. So using Reiki symbols, particularly the mental emotional symbol, and then in Karuna, the Nosa symbol, those both have to do with the intellect, um, imagination, and things of the mind, things of the higher mind. And so I was asking for that. And then that's when the AI came in. And Robyn brought it up and we brought it up. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, now I'm curious
Yeah.
and really excited about it.
Yeah. So just a little bit about what it is for those of you that
That's
are
good.
listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, is that so what we're talking about, and again, as Colleen said, we are not experts. There are lots of YouTube videos that have experts explaining about it, talking about it. All we can talk about is how we've been using it, and then how we've been using it personally and how we've been using it for business, and the kind of philosophical ideas behind it from our perspectives. As Colleen said, we know that there are different things that people feel about it, but we have a certain perspective that we like to talk about because we're excited about it. So when she was talking about Chat GPT, that is one platform of the open source AI technology that has been released. It was released a little bit before, but I think it's still in beta. Is it still in beta right
I think
now?
it's still in beta. It's still in development for
Yeah,
sure.
it's still in development. It's actually been out for a little while, but it was a pretty small access to it. I remember Sean, my husband, talking about DALL-E, which is the art side of it that uses the open source AI technology to create art. but essentially this open source AI, artificial intelligence, is a technology that chat is one of the biggest things that we are using it for right now. However, there are new technologies being written and released on this every single day. So what the chat one, which is the one that we know most about, although Colleen's kind of deep dived in some of the other ones that she can talk about, but chat right now is the one that we use the most. And the URL for that is chat.openai.com. And that is ChatGPT. So you'll hear us use that language, ChatGPT, quite a bit. That is a platform that you can write what are called prompts into, and it will come up with language. It will come up with writing of different things. So a prompt would be, write me a gluten-free dinner menu for 7 days a week and give me the ingredients. You can say, explain to me what some of the cool ones, Colleen, I'm kind of blanking right now. Explain to me in Shakespearean language, what is Reiki, for example. And we've put in what is Reiki in there, and it comes up with some really great explanation around it and how you can explain Reiki in a blog length, in an article length, in a social media post length. You can have different lists, ideas. Colleen, we decided to do an Italian themed Christmas dinner because, my grandparents were there and my grandfather's Italian. And so you said, the prompt was, give me a Italian themed Christmas dinner ideas and give me the ingredients for it and recipes for it. And it will come back with all of those things.
And shopping list.
And shopping lists. Yeah. And shopping lists. So the possibilities are pretty well endless for what you can, what prompts you can put in. And the prompts are essentially the directions. My cousin is an engineer, and he is using it for, give me the code for this. And if the code doesn't come back that works, he says, okay, here's the problems I'm having. And ChatGPT will rewrite the code. And it took him, I think, 3 prompts in order to get the right code, which before, when he was doing it manually, doing it himself, it would taken him, what did he say, like a week to figure out
Yes,
where the code wasn't
8
working.
hours, 8 hours, and then a couple of days of a team to check the work.
Yeah.
Check the work. Well, here's one that was interesting yesterday, because here's the other side of it that people talk about for kids is someone had me, we had talked about ChatGPT before, and then when we got back together yesterday, we were talking about a report that her daughter wrote and turned in, that she got A++ on this report, very different than how she's ever written anything. And it was on Macbeth. And so I got together with the mom and we put the Macbeth play report into the ChatGPT, and it always generates something different each time you use it. So it's never going to give you the exact same report, but it was really clear that she had figured out how to use this. Well, one of the things that's going on with that part of it is that there are also artificial intelligence like originality.ai and grammarly.com. Both of those you can insert work and it will tell you whether it was AI generated or whether it was human generated, and even by the percentages. So, what we see with it for work for ourselves, like what is Reiki, how does it work, things like that, is that in our case, we're still using our own content in the prompts that we're using with Reiki. But it is really nice that it can put it into an edited format for us in an easier way. So one of the examples is that I took one of the articles that I wrote. Oh, the one that just went out in our newsletter, Reiki for Mind Management. And I put it into ChatGPT and asked it to give me a summary of the article, and it did. And then I asked it to give me lesson plans based on the article, and it did. And then I went into the lesson plans and asked it to explain things in depth, and it did. Again, it was still my own content, and I would still always need to go back and rewrite, add depth, make sure it's mine. But at the same time, it can give you a structure. Now, this was for an existing article. I did one the other day that I wanted to know more about Saint Augustine and understand his role in the belief in original sin in Christianity and where that came from, what were the influences of the day. And so as I asked questions, I would get an answer, and it would, evoke another question like, oh, here, I want to know more about this. So for instance, that he was a bishop in the church during the time of the change, dramatic changes in the Roman Empire, and how Christianity was stepping into the next level of prominence in that circumstance. So not to go off into that whole subject, because it's a big subject. It was super fascinating, because he also, through that, brought in the idea of undeserved grace by God. And so it was just really fascinating to work with, and to understand more about. And so it was a fun inquiry, and it was a fun way to get to inquire about the information. So the one other thing to know about any of it is it can produce inaccurate information. So let's say I wanted to create a post or something about that subject, I would still need to fact check it. And I would still need to research my own site, what am I trying to say?
Citations, you need to,
Citations,
yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
But then there's also another AI called, I think it's called, let me look at my notes real quick, but I think it's called Read the Books AI, and it will take you, you can type in the subject and it will take you to all the different books that are about that subject, talk about what that subject is in the book, and give you the information from there. So, but it doesn't change the fact that you still need to do your own research and still generate your own content. So of course, some people are going to use it and, not necessarily add their own content to it. One of the other things that is out there is whether Google is going to penalize people for using ChatGPT, say, on their website for SEO. Now, again, these are some of the areas where I'm not an expert. I can just tell you what I have seen from some of the other people, although I don't know if they're the experts either. So just listening around the whole thing, and listening to multiple sources, is that as long as you're still adding your own content and what you are using, say, on your website, you're not getting tagged for it, or it's also not going to ding you, I guess is the word for it, ding you for it in the SEO. as long as you're still working with your own content. One of the YouTube people that I really like watching is, her name is Lori Ballen, Ballen. And she has a lot of great information that is ethical, how you use it ethically, how the work can benefit you in, really helping you generate your processes with information. So again, you still have to add your own things with it. One of the other ones I do want to make sure I talk about that is interesting to me, the word really hasn't gotten out yet, that I've seen, and I've been using it, although I'm not a super user. And again, I'm not sponsored in any way, is called Swell AI. So SWELLAI.com. That one is amazing because it works with your videos. So you can take a recording, whether it's audio or video, and do the same thing where you drop it into the URL, you drop the recording into the prompt box, and it actually generates an article from the recording. It generates, so this is really good for YouTubers. So it generates the article from the recording. Then it also gives you, let me click on one so I make sure I get this accurate. So I wonder if I should screen share this, Robyn.
Yeah, I mean, if you think it'd be best.
I think so, yeah. So here's one that we just did because we've been teaching the 12 Heavens class. So I took the recording of one part of the class. And this is the invocation.
Let me just quickly say, if you're listening to this, we will be posting, this is posted on our YouTube as well. So if you want to see with the screen share, you can go to the YouTube to see that piece.
Oh yeah, thank you. So here it gives you the transcript, which is much better than the transcript we're getting from Zoom, but I'm assuming Zoom's going to be on the AI track.
They already are. It's just a matter of integrating the better AI than what they already use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it gives you, oh, go ahead.
Also say that the invocation was channeled by us, by, Colleen and I, and then me actually in the invocation, me. The journey was channeled by Colleen and me. The information that we use in the PowerPoint is channeled, but also, the knowledge that we have from our Reiki expertise. And then, the shamanic expertise, the time that we have spent in the in this work, in this stuff. So the actual information that you are inputting into this program is our information. That
it's our work.
It's our work that not only have we spent hours and hours and hours co-creating with spirit, but hours and hours and hours co-creating with our our, not only our teaching, but the as students that we have learned over the years and years of this work. So I just want to also caveat that before you kind of show all of the things that it's generating.
Yeah, because this is all of our work. I'm going to do a different one because the other one, I didn't realize it was an invocation. So I'm going to share the screen. So here's one. And this topic was about ancestral healing for others. So we took the recording, our recording, we put it into the dashboard with just the recording link. It gave us a transcript. It wrote an article about what it was about, and the article is pretty comprehensive. Again, you would need to go back and add your own content. It's not perfect, that's for sure, but it's a good start. It also gives you the show notes. So here's the different things that we need. So this is great for podcasting. That's what it's designed for. And then if you're doing a podcast, it'll give you the summary of the topic. And it gives you options so you can regenerate new ones if you didn't like the one they wrote. It also gives you the titles. Exploring techniques of ancestral healing. So anyway, that one is called Swell AI, SWELLAI. And because we do so many podcasts and we do so much on YouTube, we do a lot on video, that this is really nice to just put it into something. Now, this is a paid service. ChatGPT is not paid. But I also have the ChatGPT open.
Mine, it's down right now. Mine's down. I don't know.
Mine's
Maybe
open. I just don't
open.
know if you can hide your
History.
history.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you can.
Let me see if I do this, if I can. Yeah, it's going to keep my history up there. So I'm not sure I want to do that on a recording. Well, anyway, you guys can go into it and look at it. So there's a lot of really great options. We've been playing with the image AI too, and those are DALL-E.
Canva has one.
Canva has one.
Dreams is another one.
Dreams.
Yeah, it's Dreams.
I think that's the one that Sue is using.
That's the one Sue's using. And I was just, let me look it up. I think I have it in a text because I was going to try that one. I think so far, dream.ai, that one seems to be pretty good. Although I will say that the Canva one has been pretty good. I've been playing with that. So there's a lot of options and we have been using it. So for example, one of the places that you can use it for business is, you know, a prompt being in chat. Give me 10 social media ideas for, you know, for Reiki business, for my, you know, give me 5 social media prompts for Reiki journey. So what it does then is it gives you 5 ideas, just like that's out there on, you know, you can find this stuff on different calendars that you can download from creators, from different Pinterest pins that, you know, creators have put out there as far as like 5 ideas. It gives you a sentence of an idea and then you create from there. So one might be share an offering that you have. The next one might be, gosh, I just lost it, but I had it. Hold on. Share an offering that you have. The next one might be, and I'm not reading this, I've just, you know, used it before. Share a story that you might have about your healing, or maybe a client's healing that, you know, obviously you wouldn't share personal details. The next one would be share a fun, you know, piece of artwork about Reiki or journeying with Reiki. So it gives you those ideas and then you can create from there, which I know for a lot of people in Reiki businesses, you know, some of that can be some of the hard part of like, okay, what do this is just one example. What do I post about now? You know, what's my next post going to be? So those are some of the places that you can use it. Another place that we really use it is, you know, give me some mainstream language for how you say this, because Colleen and I tend to talk about things in ways that doesn't always use kind of like they're conceptual, they're very conceptual. And so it's like, how do you, you know, give me a mainstream language so that it's more attainable is not the right word, so that it is, it's like more people can understand it. It's a little bit more generic, and then we can use our own language how we want, but then also it can be helpful to add in those words, because that is definitely a place that we have found that we don't use the words that might be a little more understandable to people, because I don't want to use the term wrong words, but it's definitely helpful for us in that way. And then the other place that it can be really helpful is title writing. So helping you to write your titles for different things. It can be helpful for that as well. So those are just some of the small places that we are using it. We still have to generate the title. We still have to write the content or produce the content that we need the title for. But that is a place that is a science. That is a place that people, it's literally like what they do is just researching how to write titles, writing titles, things like that. That, frankly, we spend a lot of time trying to get better and better and better at. And so it is a place that we still have to go and rewrite them, because sometimes they give us good things, but other times it's like, oh, that's not exactly what we were saying. And so we'll have to go back through and kind of rearrange the different things that it might give us. But it still does a pretty good job. And again, it uses that mainstream language that we don't always use in our work. That is really helpful. So those are just some of the small places that we are using it in our business that are really helpful. I know for a lot of people, social media can be a place where it can have, we can feel a little bit of those blocks in, as Reiki people, as we are either starting our business or even just using it from Reiki, with Reiki, from a personal perspective, and how much Reiki has helped us. So being able to go in and have it gives us those prompts to use in our social media can actually, help with any sort of shyness, any sort of blocks around, I don't know what to do, how to post. And while you can find different posting calendars out there, they're not always Reiki specific. And so it can be helpful in those kinds of things too. So those are just some of the ways that we are using it right now. So Colleen, I don't know if you have any other thoughts around that, because I would also like to get into some of the philosophical ideas around it too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I mean, here's the scoop, you guys. If you have a curiosity about it, or you think you have a use for it, to me, the best thing that I did was went to YouTube and just typed in, ChatGPT or artificial intelligence, and just started listening to different YouTube creators that are using it and seeing how they're using it and the ideas behind it, and then the different ones that are showing up. So just like I learned about Originality AI, where it can check for the authenticity of the content and whether somebody actually wrote it or whether it was generated by AI, or finding out about Pictory that can help you with your, if you have presentations that you're going to do, and creating like a PowerPoint type of a presentation. And it's where I learned about, well, no, I think I learned about Swell Eye on TikTok, but some of the others that can be really beneficial that are built on top of the open source AI that is now made available for everyone. I just started searching around YouTube, found some of the creators that I really like. The one tip I would give you is that if the YouTube is more than 2 months old, and really even more than a month old, it's already outdated. So there's new information here that's coming out almost every day. So I've watched so many of them already. It's what I do when I wake up, and I'm waking up, is I'll turn on the YouTube channel and just listen to different creators. But some of the ones that are really useful, like I say, Lori Ballin, she is one that I like because she's directly applying it to how to use it ethically in business and efficiently in business. Another YouTube creator I really like is Vanessa Lau, Lau. And she really does a great job with, some of the how-to and the marketing. So she's a little bit different than the AI topics, but she is really, really good in the how to do different things with social media in particular. And then, since we've mentioned astrology and who we listen to, one of them that I've found recently on YouTube that I really like is Molly McCord. And I really like her approach to astrology, and it's practical. And the way she talks about it is really understandable. And I have enough experience with it to understand when people talk about astrology in a more complicated way, but it's nice when, she just puts it in kind of common language, as Robyn was saying, that is easy to understand. And then, of course, the generality of it, because it's not individual for each person. It's for you to apply it to yourself. But anyway, so those are some of the ones that I really like. And then in the other one in AI that I like is Brett Malinowski. And you can just type that in, Brett Malinowski, and if it's misspelled, it's still going to come up because he's a pretty big creator. But I like his information. Going back to kind of some of it that was around December, beginning of January, that is very relevant, like different ways to use it.
I'm laughing because it also has to be creators that are understandable.
Yes.
Some of the ones that
Exactly.
move so fast, and some of the ones that use, tech oriented language that is not as in layman terms. It's like they're for people like my husband Sean, who's very tech savvy, and like he can just move so fast. It's like wait. Pause.
Hold it,
Okay, catch up with what you're doing.
go back.
Pause. Catch up with what you're doing.
Totally.
Things that take like, they'll put it into like a 3-minute YouTube video that takes hours to actually like accomplish.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And understanding the different, for me, sometimes I still have to Google the terms they're using.
Oh, I have to. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. Wait, what does that mean?
Yeah, like API. Okay, they all just say API. It's an API.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What is that? So I Google that. What is API?
Yeah.
So for me, it is a curiosity. And here's my idea, heading into the philosophy of it, is I'm 65 and I think of myself as still young. And that I first of all am intrigued by it all. But I also believe that, well, first of all, AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
So we can have all the debates we want about whether it's, good or bad or anything else that people are having right now. But it's the same thing as, to me, when the calculator came out. And I was in 9th grade when calculators were really aging myself here, when calculators were the big thing and we weren't able to use them, we weren't allowed to use them. And so now, of course, we would use a calculator, but we still have to know our own numbers that we have to input into the calculator. So that to me is still the truth, is that if you're going to use any of this, then you still have skills you have to develop. It is not without skill. It can be used without skills. But if you are actually going to utilize it in a way that makes a difference in how you are using it, and making sure that it is still your voice, your content, your intention for it, and and it can give you a shell of the work that you're doing. That to me is how it's useful. And so gaining skill with it to me is the next step. And I just think I'm still too young to not keep up. And so I know not everybody needs to keep up with technology. I think it's
Not,
both
not every,
fascinating.
yeah, not everybody's interested, and that's fine. We're all interested in different things.
Yeah. Or have a use for it.
Mhm.
So, but I do think it's here to stay. And I do think we're at the infancy of it. And it's only going to expand more and has to be expanded with as much integrity as possible. And that's part of where we come in is I do believe that as we work with Reiki energy in these fields of technology, it also increases the energy of Reiki in the fields, and the innovations then can include those higher frequencies that Reiki empowers in life force energy, which to me includes the electromagnetic fields that technology is built on. Well, it's also built on the physical realms too. But the imagination, that it takes for people, I mean, it's mind boggling that they even think of these things. So,
Well, as you said, it's a new technology. It's here. And so as the anytime there's new technology, you have the possibilities, and then you have the parts of it where humanity has to figure it out. As you said, with the calculator, and then moving into the computer, and then moving into the internet, and then moving into social media. If you look at all of these places, and this is just there's so many more that I could name. I'm not going to go into them.
communication, Zoom.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's not so many more. There is these technologies that are here to stay. And there's these technologies that move humans into a new place. The and this AI technology is one of them. Cryptocurrency is one of them. NFTs, that this whole space, these are new. What people don't always know about crypto and NFTs is they're actually technologies. They're not necessarily being used in that way yet, but they're technologies. And this AI is a technology that is shifting. All of these things are technologies that are shifting humanity. And there's not, we're not going back at this point, just as we weren't going back with the calculator, just as that helped propel. I know it was human calculators that helped propel people to launch rockets and go into space and things like that. But then the calculator came out and allowed that to be more attainable. The computers and the computing helped that to become more attainable, where we could put things into space at a faster rate. There's all of these technologies. When I was in high school, dating myself here, when I was in high school is when the internet was coming out. I mean, it was out already, but when the internet was becoming
Web two.
huh?
Web
Yeah, it was
2.
becoming more, I grew up with Oregon Trail on our computers and all of the memes that the millennials have about what was on our computers, and, the downloading and the getting onto the internet and all of
AOL.
those. AOL. But when I was in high school, I specifically remember in my, English classes, in my AP English classes, like the discussions about what we were using from the internet, and then that discussion about the copying and pasting it into our written English papers, and how the English teachers were able to check if we were plagiarizing or not, and the entire discussion about that. And that happened when I was in high school. And from the time I was a freshman to the time I was a senior, um, how that changed, how at first there were some kids that were able to get away with it. And then the having to move from the citing our sources from books to the citing our sources from the internet, and how we couldn't just copy it because they can just check it, like they can just check it. So and then the learning how to cite our sources from the different internet sources. So that whole process, and then how by the time I was in college and doing the same thing, it was a non-issue at that point, because you couldn't just plagiarize from the internet, because everything was then being turned in on digitally, and they could literally just copy and paste it. And so that whole discussion happened in my, short academic life. And humanity figured it out. We will figure it out, because there are the issues that we do hear concerns about, with the ethical pieces of it, with this plagiarizing pieces of it, that then there are new possibilities of technology that people create to come in and solve these problems. But we also have an opportunity here to embrace this. I agree, Colleen, that it's like, I don't necessarily want to be the person that says, I don't know about this new technology because there's these A, B, and C issues. Like, I want to be the person that is, and everybody has their own thoughts around this. So this is my own personal take on it, that I do want to be the person that is like, okay, well, how do I co-create with this? And we had this, and I know we've talked about this a lot, but that was also really in the invocation. We didn't do it on the actual recording. We just did it for each other, that we always do before our everything we do, podcasts and things like that, where we we make sure that we're also co-creating with Reiki in our work. And that was a really big piece of it, and that we talk about in animal Reiki, that we talk about in our work, that you've really talked about, that you've seen, that if we are able to put the frequencies and love into this technology, if we create from a place of love into these places of technology, what a difference that can make in the future. Because open source is here, decentralization in a lot of different forms is here. It is what my generation and the generation of the future is looking to in certain ways. There's new levels of freedom within it. Being open source with your innovations, with your work in certain ways. It's a sharing idea. It's a sharing community. And the fact that this technology was put onto open source instead of proprietary, is that in itself is like when Google came out and was basically, it was open source essentially. I remember my husband showing me, he's like, you got to check out this new Google thing. And he was like, before it was like, no, what is this Google? We're going to all be, what were we searching on before that? Netscape or whatever it was. And he was like, no, you got to check
Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves. There you go. Got to check out this Google. And the fact that this is open source is just an open source, meaning that anybody can use the technology, is just wild. Like, people are going to use it for their proprietary things, which, that's great too. But it is part of where we're moving to in this age of information, which is also like crazy and beautiful. And if we can help to put these frequencies of love into this technology, what does that do for the descendants? Like, and what was interesting in the invocation is that I know in the animal Reiki course, because it's more than just about tools and techniques for animals, it's about nature. It's about shifting our perspective and how we live in this world, coming from a place of communion. You were talking about the original sin piece of it earlier. And so it's about shifting that and creating from a place of love instead of from a place of believing ourselves to be destructive, from a place of shame, from places of fear. If we can create from a place of love, that we think about how different technologies, how different the things can be, that is part of what solves so much of our current issues. It's as Einstein said, we have to solve the problems from a different place that we created the problems. And what I keep saying this, what came in the invocation is it wasn't a place from love. What was a really big shift in the wording, it was with love. So if we can co-create with love into these technologies, what are the different outcomes? And to me, Reiki is love. We're not the only ones co-creating with the idea of love into these spaces. We just are utilizing the Reiki energy for that. And how you and I do that is co-creating with love into these technologies. And we talked about this in our animal Reiki class over the weekend, of just even the idea of atomic energy and how that was developed in a place that was to be used. It was developed by, the places to be used for destruction, for war. And what if that atomic energy had been developed from a place and co-created with a place of love? Now, I don't know enough about it, so I don't want to go too far into that idea, because I know that it can be used in a lot of ways that aren't from a loving place. But had that been created in that way, and I know necessarily not the scientists necessarily weren't coming from the ideas of, destruction or anything like that. So I don't even mean it that way. But if the whole point of it had been for love, would be in a different place with it in this world today, and there's so many different examples of that, and places where it has happened, right? Like we have places where that's happened. And we have really amazing possibilities and these really amazing outcomes from that. And so we have the opportunity in the infancy of a technology, the infancy, that we have no idea where this is going to take us, just as the internet, how we can put these frequencies into this technology as much as possible. How can we create with it, with love? And I remember with the rise of the internet and the people saying, "Oh, it's just a fad, it's not going to stay," and then how much,
I always thought, why would I use that?
why would I use that?
Like, what does it
Exactly.
do?
Yeah. And all of the different ways that it could be misused and all of these things. And, and there was no point. It didn't matter that we had those opinions, because the technology is here and it's here.
Well, and that is certainly true with this. And my thought with it is develop the skills with it and become skilled, become informed with it. And again, only to the degree that you need it. And I'm going to be way less skilled than, some of these young kids that, Robyn was talking about. I can't even understand their YouTubes because it's still so over my head. But to kind of to her point with it, that is what we were really shown with using Zoom technology, and that this is now being recorded on, because Robyn and I had been using Zoom for at least 3 years prior to 2020. And when it became like everybody was on Zoom, and we just knew we were so compelled to learn how to teach Reiki online. And we weren't teaching Reiki classes online like the 1 and 2 Master and Karuna. we were actually teaching our next step Reiki classes. And, we started those we started them in person and then moved to online so that we had a bigger outreach and people could take the class from far away. It wasn't dependent on them being local. But when Reiki went online in 2020, and William called and asked, he said he received the energy for it. And, we talked about it, and Robyn and I had already been using it for 3 years, using Zoom, which ended up the vehicle to be able to communicate. And now what we see is, it's opened the door for global communication and global community. And so we really see that in our distance Reiki shares that we have every Tuesday mornings on Zoom. And we have them every Tuesday morning. And then also our next step and our Explore the 12 Heavens classes. Those are monthly on Zoom and all over the world. Well, I guess right now we've still been doing all of our classes. The animal Reiki and the human Reiki classes are still, we've still been teaching them online, and so effective. But here's the philosophical part of it, is that when we started that and started that work, and when William received the information William Rand received the information that the energy was here to support this online Reiki teaching style and that we could work this way, I was really asking the energy, and I was being asked by people about it. And, how does this work that we're teaching this online now? So I was working with a particular woman, and in that work, we were going to go to, her name's Graciela. In that work, we were going to the ancestors to ask them what to do, and the experience that they had, pandemic, and all the civil rights uprising going on and protests going on. And so, the continuing change in the world that was happening, and is happening. But anyway, the ancestors told us to go to the descendants and ask them what we can do. And so it has been, I've kind of always done that, but not like this showed up, like ask the descendants. So we have been adding that into our work in powerful ways. And at the time, the descendants said, it is really powerful that we are adding these energies into the electromagnetic fields, that technology is being innovated with, because, and not just Reiki, but all these other higher frequency energies that people are working with, as this electromagnetic field element of the earth is being investigated, innovated with, developing technology with, that it really makes a difference that we are empowering physically these fields of energy and higher frequency, and stating an intention that we want these higher frequencies in these fields of innovation. And so what happens with that is that the people who are doing the innovating have the energy there, and they don't have to have Reiki. They don't even have to be thinking spiritually in the same way that we might think of it, but the energy actually exists and, really assists in the ability of co-creating. And so that's the other thing. If you believe that we are co-creators of our reality, Reiki energy helps us co-create with higher frequencies. So recently, I was working with another woman. Oh, it was actually a man that as a client, and the descendants really came in with him. And they actually said at the time that in truth, they would call themselves the ascendants, because they said humanity does evolve in good ways. And I really, how like when you receive those that are not just a sound, but it's like an inner knowing that you receive it at a very deep level. And so I heard that and feel feel really optimistic about it. And it feels very true to me. And I think that even with these younger generations, I know some of the older generations are like, what are these kids doing? Which, of course, the older generations said when we were kids.
There's
Yeah,
a pretty constant human condition. It's that one.
yeah, really. I mean, you can look at every generation and the
Exactly.
generation
The same
before
thing
that.
about those rock and roll kids
Oh,
with
we,
Elvis.
I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
the 60s was a wild time,
Yeah.
and
Well,
70s for
I'm
me.
talking about the generation ahead of you, and then
Yes.
your generation for sure.
Yes. I know. I think back to it and think of, my parents were actually pretty liberal, but they were like, cut that hair.
Yeah.
To my
Or I just
brothers.
even watching Downton Abbey, and when they introduced the electricity, and
Oh,
the
right.
just is like, why would you ever use electricity? you know
That was one. What was the other show too? That's, oh God, I can't remember the name. It's so good, in New York. And the same thing when they introduced electricity, and everybody gathered around this building that they were going to light up, and they lit it up, and it was just like,
yeah,
just amazing.
yeah.
So
So
right.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and also you get to ask Reiki, you get to be in how you feel, how you think about it.
Yes.
And that is the other beautiful piece of this, you know, era that we're living in, is that we get to have our own ideas on that. And, there might be people listening to this that are like, I completely disagree with you. And I love that. That's amazing. Like, it's good to have the conversations about that, and why, and, all of these things that, you may, and even with co-creating with Reiki, like, here, I have a completely different viewpoint of this. This is why, and here's what I'm co-creating with Reiki and co-creating with love. We tend to be interested in this. We have always been interested in these subjects. We are fine. So at the same time, like us having this piece that we are using Reiki and love to co-create with this. So that's one piece of it. And that own inner authority that, we talk about all the time. And that is another piece that, I've been shown with the decentralization, that that is that removal of that outer authority, that we get to have our inner authority. It's the same explanation for the same thing, that we get to have our own inner authority, as opposed to an outer authority telling us what needs to be true for us. And so it is about listening to your own inner authority, your own inner guidance around it. And we also are big nature people, right? So where we get our, recharge is by going to the river, is by going to the forest, is by being in nature, seeing nature, going to the viewpoint. We go up to the mountain every weekend for snowboarding, and I'm always posting that mountain, because of the recharge I get just from standing on the mountain. But the two aren't mutually exclusive. We get to have both. And the other piece of that is, we've talked a lot about returning to the old ways, and how we're in that piece of this as well. Before that, that, those kind of colonial ideas, that we don't get to be in the ancient wisdoms of the ancients, of these ancient practices that we are all getting to, participate in again. And I know there are lots of cultures that have been participating in them all along. So I don't mean it that way, but some of those aspects that many of us weren't able to participate in, and now that is starting. And so there is this beautiful integration that we don't know where it's taking us yet, but there is the opportunity for this beautiful integration to put those frequencies of nature into this technology, to put that ancient wisdom into this technology, to use the technology for a return to that. How can we use the technology to move into a place of that communion, more into an ecosystem with nature in all of the places that we need to as a species, right? How can the technology be utilized for better agricultural systems, more unity within humans, peace, all of these places that we are being confronted as a species, that we need to move into a different place as a species, where we can co-create with the earth, where we can co-create with love with the earth. And how do we also, like, I love that what you said, Colleen, about putting this energy into the electromagnetic fields. How can we all move into that place with this co-creation with it? And we know that those frequencies into the electromagnetic fields, they happen, right? We have this this idea of like morphic resonance, where people like can get the same ideas all over the world, because we have this morphic resonance. And it, they don't have that. That's the term. You can kind of like look into that and Google that. It's like, how does that work? Is it because we're all putting these ideas into the electromagnetic fields, or is it because we're downloading the ideas from the electromagnetic fields? And so can we add these ideas that so many of us have right now into the technology in a really good and beautiful way for the descendants, for the ascendants, as that term has come through for you. And so that's the other thing, is that I think many of us think that it is potentially that they have to be mutually exclusive, that we can't have this technology, have this things move forward through screens and things like that, but not also co-create with nature, not also co-create in a sustainable way, not also be filled up, be inspired by nature. And that's how we have our and that's who we are. And that also who we are is really looking at the ways that these technologies can move us forward and help us as a species.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it's really for each person to decide and what your interest is, and your freedom and right to have opinions about it that you have, and that those are equally true for you.
Yeah.
As we always say, there's 7 billion people on the planet and 7 billion realities. And then it was like the rest of the earth said, there's more than 7 billion, because everything else has a reality too.
Yeah.
And so then my mind went, boom.
Oh gosh, me too right now.
Yeah, it's like,
That's
okay, speaking
crazy.
of being in communion with the earth.
Well, and just talk, you and I had the kind of conversation recently about this idea that the microbes in our gut, our gut biome, have a reality, and to us, to them, we're their universe, right? Because they can't see beyond the parameters of our gut.
Right.
And so like, oh, that's a reality too.
Exactly. I mean, you look at,
Wow.
I watched Luna, Robin's daughter, with her little potato bugs. and they have a reality,
Yes.
especially as she's putting them in her little containers to feed them. And their
Safe.
reality of their universe just changed. They got suddenly transported by an alien
Yeah.
who just loves them.
Yeah.
We do have her put them back, by the way.
Yeah.
But she gets to know them for a little while before
She has the curiosity. She loves
she has the
bugs.
curiosity. Oh, she loves them.
One of her favorite books is about bugs, so if you got a bug kid, then you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a bug kid.
Yeah.
My poor bees. We had oleanders in San Diego, and they were always flowering, so they were always filled with bees, and I just loved them. So
Still love them.
I still love, well, I do. I still love bees.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yes, as a animal and bug kid, but yes, speaking of realities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really could go deep into that one. Well, and in our 12 heavens class, we have been really studying the first heaven, which is this physical realm, right? This earth. And it has been really, I think, just illuminating all of the things around the first heaven. And it's, as we always say in our Reiki work and our journeys and those healings that we have occur, they show us within that time frame, but they also show us all the way, in so many, in like our ordinary life, they show us these different teachings, these different learnings. And yeah, it's so it's just been showing like that microbiome, that idea. Now you just like totally, now I'm going to go into that idea that there's so many more than the 7 billion realities. So, and we didn't even get into VR and AR. Let's not go there, because we've just been really playing with this open source AI and all the different ways that it exists, but there's a whole nother rabbit hole too. So
VR and metaverse and
yeah, and
Web3.
yeah, and augmented reality, which is what AR stands for. So again, the possibilities of it, for me, I think about like the ideas of the meditations and the different places that you can create in VR and AR, and none of this ever replaces the nature, the ancient wisdoms, all of those things. It doesn't replace that. Nothing ever can, right? But how can we co-create with the technology from a place of love and high vibrations? That's really where we are at with it, and where we go with it, and what it has taught us. That's the other thing, what Reiki has taught us with it all, from our own perspectives.
Yeah. Well, it's all really fun to contemplate and think about. And, this is just a little insight to some of the things we talk about. And this particular subject has been very up because of its benefits and the things that we can do with it, and that piece of curiosity that is there, and seeing what we can work with. And I've always been the type, Robyn can attest, I still have it all in my closet, like everything that I needed to do, recordings with a cassette tape, and then the digital thing, and then the, CDs and digital recorders, and then voice memos on the phone, how to send it all.
Yeah, you've always been a little bit of a tech geek.
Tech geek. Yeah, I didn't know it during it. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know that about myself until later. It was like, oh yeah, well, kind of over time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of am always interested in the next thing. And
It makes sense if you were born, within like my generation or my husband's generation. I could see that you would be, similar to him in those ways. So it is endlessly, there's endless curiosity within it. It's infinite, just as many other things. So
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's all possibility.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what I love about Reiki, is it activates possibilities. And, whatever they are for you, whatever interests you, this is just one subject that we've gone down the rabbit hole with recently. And then
Colleen, especially, I will say,
especially me.
even my husband, who we both go to, even Sean, like who we both go to, for like, okay, how do we do this with technology? Like he was like, I don't know, as with this AI stuff. He's like, yeah, I don't know. You have to ask your mom. Like she kind of has been deeper into the rabbit holes than me right now.
The AI stuff.
Yeah.
Well, things like, for instance, I just needed to write a really professional email. Well, of course, what the email needed to say had to come from me, but putting it in a professional format was like, I popped it into ChatGPT, said, write a professional email about this, and boom, it just came out. And so good. I mean, that's just one use that I've used like yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Emails are a big one that people are talking about. For me, I haven't had it, like I haven't had enough, I don't have enough like kind of form emails that a lot of people like in corporate do. So I haven't been able to utilize it for that, but I have friends that are kind of in that corporate life that are like, it's changed my email game, and the amount of time that I spend on emails is like cut by like 3/4 of my time. So
there's
yeah, it's really interesting where, well, and just even thinking about that with what that would free up time wise for people if they're not spending on it writing emails, like the
making sure I
actual
have all the formatting correct,
professional
that
courtesy
it's
and
professional. If I'm just writing an email to somebody, that's different.
yeah,
But if I needed to look professional,
yeah,
and it did that. And the other one that I've been recently been playing with is like some of the template emails that I need for inquiries about podcast guests, things like that,
yeah,
that, you don't want to rewrite the same thing every time. And so just getting like the editing done, because I write like I talk.
yeah.
And
True.
so I have, kind of a lot of words. So sometimes it's also, write this in 100 words or less, and it'll
Yeah,
take the same content and summarize it, which makes it much more readable, because everybody doesn't want to read the hundreds of words that it takes to, or like was it Seth Rogen? Is he the marketing guy? I get all the Seths mixed up.
Godin, Seth Godin.
Seth Godin. So anyway, he wrote this really great blog post about how, like if you're writing a title, or for anything, a subject line, or for a YouTube video or anything, to try to do it in 10 words or less. And so he explained it in 10 words. And the way he explained what he was saying was in 10 words. And when I explained it, I used all the words I just used. So like, hundreds of words to say in 10 words. So you can also use it for something like that, just give me
Yeah,
the summary of what I'm trying to say.
so true. It's so well, that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier about that mainstream language, that it
Yeah.
is like, the things that we say, it's like sometimes we're like, who has any idea what we're talking about?
I
I know our
know.
group does, I know our community does, and we have long enough format to be able to explain what we mean. But that doesn't mean that that's going to translate into a social media post that people don't want to read, you know, 5 paragraphs longer than that of like, what we mean. That could be shortened to like 3 sentences. So there's some of those kinds of things that are very helpful. And maybe if we were more like trained professional writers, they can eloquently put that, in a way that is um that is somebody like that might be able to do that. But for people like us, like I'm not able to do that. So it's like those kinds of things that are helpful for us. So, but speaking of this kind of, it's not this kind of stuff, but humanity and uh, those kinds of things and technology, I actually am going to start having construction outside of my house. They're working on the sewer lines as part of the city update things, starting in a few minutes. So, and it's going to be very loud, according to them. I think they're going
Okay,
to have
well, it sounds like it's time to finish up.
jackhammers and things like that. But I actually, we've been kind of talking about this because it's been going on for about a week or so, and just the kind of dichotomy of that. And but at the same time, it's technology in its own way, and how that's all been developed, that we get to have sewer lines and they're updating it to be more environmentally friendly, which is a good thing. And so I'm very grateful that they are going to be working on the sewer lines outside of our house and on the streets and in the city, to help that. But it is definitely a very human thing. So
Very, very earth thing.
very earth
And
thing.
one of those things to be extraordinarily grateful for.
So grateful.
I definitely know that, having traveled around the world. Like, we're really glad to have what we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, very different podcast from normal and very different for all of us. And as we've been talking, I've also put a few things into ChatGPT to see what it was saying about certain things, and just playing with it. It is very easy to learn. So it's, again, openai.com. It's called ChatGPT. If you just Google either of them, you will find them. And you do have to log in. And a lot of times it's so busy that you can't access it. You have to go back later at a time that it's less busy. But it's worth playing with, and kind of just keeping an open mind about, and seeing how it's applicable to you or not. There are plenty of people around me that I'm like, guess what? You have to hear about this. And they're like, well, it doesn't really apply to me. So I totally get that also. But if you think you're interested, it is a curiosity to investigate. And we are using it with Reiki and with our work. And so as we know more, we will certainly share more. Again, we are not experts, and you can tell that just by our discussion. But I'm a fan.
Yeah, we're fans. And for us, it is nice for the practical pieces of it, but also for us, we care about the philosophical pieces of it. And that is a part of the reason that we talk about it, because if there are more of us that can create that ripple effect, it's like that is, and we're not the only places. I think I was just thinking about like the scientists and how the internet helped with communication for scientists with publishing and papers and citing and all of that kind of stuff. But even thinking about like, that whole aspect of co-creating with love and putting that into these technologies. But that is a part of the reason that we are that we talk about it, that we're passionate about it, is those philosophical pieces of it. And the more of us that can do that, the more that we change the future. We do have those small ripple effects that make a big difference over time. So.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you, everyone. And fun discussion, Robyn. Yeah. And I hope it's useful for anyone wanting to listen.
And ReikiLifestyle.com for all the things.
Oh, yeah. For all the classes, everything. Oh, I should mention the Japan class, but
that'll be yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it might be full by the time this is released, but you can go to reiki.org. William Rand and I are teaching. The Corona class is for sure full, but the master class may still have 1 or 2 spaces open. So that is on Mount Kurama in Japan, outside of Kyoto. And that is in April 8th through the 14th. So anyway, check it out there too. Oh, and we have Animal Reiki in March.
That's true. I think this will be released by then. We have
By then.
Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Animal Reiki Master in March.
In March. Yep. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.